All right, South Carolina has a massive weekend of winning. Is it a sign of things to come? I tell you about that, some recruiting news, and much, much more. Locked on Gamecocks starts right now. Strap in.
You are Locked On Gamecocks, your daily podcast on the South Carolina Gamecocks, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, guys? Welcome into Locked On Gamecocks. I'm your host, Chris Marler. I hope everyone's having a fantastic Monday, like I always say, if that's even possible. And I tell you what, we've got a good show for you today. And I want to say, first and foremost, thank you to everyone making Locked On Gamecocks your first listen each and every day. Shout out to our everydayers. Remember, we're free and available podcast wherever you get your podcasts, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Now, today's episode brought to you by our friends at FanDuel. Remember, I've told you this before, and I told you this weekend, maybe use that $5 bet from FanDuel. If you're a new user, you would sign up, put a $5 bet down. If you win, you get $150 in free bonus bets. Maybe put that $5 on South Carolina to win this past weekend, and you won some money. I hope you did. Now, let's get into it. Massive weekend of winning for South Carolina. Just that almost seems like a cliche thing, like to say, like, well, you know, like, but all the program did this weekend was win, like across the board. Basketball, men's basketball, women's basketball, baseball swept. Softball's won like 9 games in a row by run rule. It's been awesome. Now, I want to start in a place where we don't really talk that much about anymore because it hasn't really moved the needle for us, for one, if we're being honest. And also, it's not something that has been where there's been a ton to talk about. But I think that one of the things that's most exemplary of this program and this a shout out that's much deserved, okay? South Carolina basketball. You bring Texas in on Saturday. We all know hadn't won a game all year. 0-13. 0-13 playing a Texas team that's on the cusp of making the NCAA tournament. They're one of the teams that when you talk to Joe Lenardi or anyone else and they're Jerry Palm, and some of these guys that are putting together their, projections of who's going to make the field, Texas is like on the fringe of getting in. A must-win game for them. And they come in with everything to gain, right? Like, and a lot to lose if they lose, but everything to gain. They have to win this game. And they are playing a South Carolina team that I've said over and over and over again had the chance to roll over and die, and they didn't. And I think there's some of you out there that probably hear that and you're like, yeah, okay, they're supposed to do that. Like, they're athletes. And you're not wrong. Like, you're not wrong if that's your opinion. But as well, I mean, I was going to say, like most of the teams that I played on growing up, I played at a high school in Georgia that was like always ranked very high. We won like a couple state championships and it was similar like that in college. But there's times as an athlete where you're like, it's hard to get up every day. Like, it's hard to get up every day and go, hey man, listen, like we suck. There's not a ton of great possibilities that are going to come from this. And you start thinking the NIL and transfer portal era, especially with some of the news and reports that have come out saying like South Carolina might be a little bit behind on some of the NIL stuff. You have to find ways to make your team believe and make them not give up. The fact that we're sitting here talking about a team in this day and age that was 0-13 and didn't quit, massive deal. Like I feel like I say that phrase a lot. I'm so impressed by Lamont Paris, Colin Murray Boyles, Nick Pringle, every other Jordan Butler. Like, how excited do you have to be for a guy like Jordan Butler? Butler was a guy, for those of you who don't know the story, Butler was at Mizzou last year. Mizzou went 0-18 when he was playing there, and they go 0-13 here in South Carolina. He's 1-31 his past 2 years. You cannot be happier for a guy like that. Like, it's such an awesome, awesome win, and it makes me so happy because, like I said, man, like you guys, at any point, I mean, things got really tough for them. Like at any point, they could have quit, and they didn't, and that says so much to me about the culture that Lamont Paris has built at South Carolina, because it's been a blank season, like a crap season. That's not the word I want to use, but it's been a crap season. And for them to go out and beat Texas and then do it in the way they did, like I'm sure you guys watched the game, but beating Texas, I mean, they were never behind. Like they dominated Texas. They beat them by double digits. They were ahead by 20 at one point. It was awesome. It was awesome. It was awesome. That's all I'm going to say. So huge win there. I want to give Lamont Paris and his staff and that team the props that they deserve because, man, just such a massive, massive game. Now let's shift over to the rest of the weekend. We'll highlight this real quick. Women's basketball team all the way down number 6 in the country right now, which feels like it's not low. It just feels like I haven't seen them that low in quite some time. Now, the way this game played out, you got out of the blocks hot. Like what we've seen from a lot of Don Staley teams is the wake up call after a loss is significant and very, very evident. And that's good. Like the losses suck, but at least it's not something that we've talked about with other sports where it's like, hey, you know what? Oh boy, we're going to sneeze. Hold on. I mean, I hit pause on the sneeze like a real professional. Who is this guy? So one of the things, the losses, they suck and it's frustrating, all that kind of stuff. But one thing that we talk about a lot with this team or with teams in general is not allowing Saturday's loss to become next Saturday's loss. And I'm using a football analogy there because it's my favorite sport. But you think about that, like not allowing what happened last week or last game to affect what happens in the next one. Like you can't lose once and have you get beat twice. You know what I mean? And I think that is something when you look at what happened and you watch the game itself, right? Like they come out of the gates up 24-11, huge, just a great start. They're up by 10 at halftime. They won every quarter, and they damn near did it by double digits in every single one. Well, they didn't win the second quarter. They won 3 out of the 4. The thing that was most impressive to me out of all this is you look at the box score, especially, and you look at the starters. Not great. I mean, the starters 4 of the 5 played over 20 minutes. 2 of them played for 27 minutes. You only had 1 starter in double digits, but then you look at the rest of the team. Malaysia Fulwali, who's just one of my favorite players. I love her. She's awesome. Number 12 on your roster, number 1 in your hearts. She had 24 points, 2 of 4 from 3. So it's good to see her get going from there at 50% from the beyond the arc. But as a whole, let me add this math up real quick in my head here. 26 of your 82 points came from your starters, which means I believe 56 of the rest came from your bench. And that's huge. Joyce Edwards had 17. Fulwiley had 24. But it was impressive to see everyone get involved. Now you're playing Vanderbilt, who sucks, but that's fine. I can make Vanderbilt's not that bad. They're 19-9. 19-9. They're not ranked. But you've seen how difficult it is to win. And now here's the thing. Now you look at the rest of the country. We don't want to get too big picture on this yet, but I know that there's the confidence is shaken to a bit or to a little bit here with the women's basketball team because you're not used to seeing this many losses in the season. It's only 3, but that's like the same amount of losses you've had in the last 2 years combined. So the losses suck, but what's been impressive is the bounce back, right? We see it over and over and over again. And I tell you what, UConn is a really good team. They came in there and blew your doors off, and that's fine. But what I said after that episode, which was frustrating, and I said it was an embarrassing loss and all that kind of stuff. That old adage from coaches of don't waste the loss. Don't ever waste the loss. Okay. So being able to bounce back from that. And then, oh, by the way, you talk about the confidence being shaken a little bit from South Carolina. Look around the country. UCLA goes down to USC, right? A couple weeks ago. They were number 1. They were undefeated for most of the time. LSU in a dogfight yet again with Kentucky. And then you see the new number 1 team, Notre Dame. They lost earlier this past weekend to NC State. So it seems like if there's any takeaway that I have, it's for the first time in a very long time in women's college basketball, we don't have that team's undefeated, the UConn or the old Tennessee teams, some of those Notre Dame teams, Baylor for a while when Kim Mulkey was there, and then obviously with South Carolina, we're not seeing those teams that are just going to go, yep, they're going 40-0. All right, we will be back with more Locked On Gamecocks, and we'll continue to talk about a little bit of baseball action from the Diamond this weekend and Paul Maneri's bunch. There's some really good numbers there I'm excited to tell you about. The offense looks fantastic. So does the pitching staff. We'll talk about that and a little bit of softball as well. And then also we'll get into everyone's favorite offseason topic, recruiting. I don't know if it's everyone's favorite offseason topic. We're going to talk about it either way. I appreciate you guys listening. Before we go and before we get into the break, I do want to tell you real quick about our friends at Prize Picks. Now, Prize Picks, you've heard me talk about them before. You're going to hear me talk about them again because they do a great job. March basketball is here, and there's no better way to get in on the action than with Prize Picks. It's the best place for daily fantasy sports. With Prize Picks, you pick more or less on at least 2 player projections. And if you're right, you can win up to 1,000 times your cash. It's that fast, it's that easy, and it keeps the game that much more exciting. Now, I'll tell you what, this week, you start looking around the league, there's a couple of good SEC games. There were 6 SEC road games this past weekend. What I personally took, and this is, I will start showing you guys the betting slips if I can. But I took Colin Murray-Boyles over 7 rebounds, and I took Colin Murray-Boyles over 6 points, and I hit both, and it was awesome. And I won multiple times the money I put in. So you can do the same. Just download the app today. Use the code LOCKEDONCollege to get $50 off instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. That's Locked On College for $50 off after you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks, run your game. All right. We're going to run our game to a quick commercial break. We'll be right back. All right. So back at it. Welcome back in. Locked On Gamecocks. Here's the thing. The baseball team is something that, I have had a slow start getting into covering because it's just the thing about a college baseball season is it's such a long season. It's just such a long season. So I'm looking at it now, and there's obviously a lot of excitement. We talked about that with Paul Maneri coming in and all the guys you have, like Ethan Petrie coming back at first base, and that's a guy that could have been probably a top 4-round pick, you feel like, going into last year. And now, I think you're concerned with guys like that, and I'll start with Ethan Petrie. The concern with a guy like that is, one, coming back in a year where you would have been drafted highly, over 20 home runs, phenomenal season, one of the best players in the SEC, All-American status, that type of stuff. If he comes back, the concern is that something happens with hey, listen, you're just getting your back padded all year. Everyone's telling you how great you are. It's hard to sometimes take that and put in the extra work and continue to do the things it took to get where you are. It's sometimes hard to do that. Some players have a hard time with that. Ethan Petrie's not one of those guys. He has had a phenomenal start to the season. He goes 5 of 13 on the weekend. The pitching has been really good. I think the thing that's most impressed me so far, because there's been some bad pitching aspects of it. You've got 5 home runs, which is the most in the SEC. The SEC as a whole has been dominant, right? And I know South Carolina hasn't really played anybody yet. That'll change this week. But as a whole, the SEC has been dominant. You had, I think there's 15 of the 16 total teams have either 0 or 1 losses total, right? The only team with multiple losses is Missouri, who is frankly one of the worst teams in the country. So you look at what's in store for this team. I want to pull something up real quick. So this is all stuff I should have brought up beforehand, but you guys know how I am. No better time than right in the moment to do it. Now, one of the things that I thought was really interesting, Paul Maneri brought this up. Let me pull it up. This is great radio. Sorry. Hold on. So one of the things he brought up was the offense as a whole. We talked about this. I keep bringing up this one stat that stuck out to me so much last year. And the stat was, you look at the guys that were behind, or sorry, they were behind Ethan Petrie, or alongside him really in the infield. Everyone from second base, shortstop, and third base. You had over 30% of their total at bats last year were strikeouts. That kind of stuff is not great. And you had a concerted effort to make sure that all changes, right? Pepper, say hello. Okay, Pepper's up here. So that they made a concerted effort to make sure you change that. Now, not only has the team hit for a higher average this year, but one of the most impressive parts of what they've done is that they've been able to absolutely crush the baseball. Like going into, I think after last weekend's game, they swept Milwaukee. They had a really good come from behind victory on Friday night. The other 2 games, I feel like they kind of led for most of the way. But really good come from behind victory. Then the pitching's been great. Like we talked about that. Petriavis has been great. You've been good in the outfield, but the hard hit baseballs that you've had, I think you had, according to Palmineri, they are ranked 4th in the country in hard hit baseballs. I think that's like something anything over 100 miles an hour. One of the players, and of course, it's I'm drawing a blank on the name, is I believe he's like 2nd in the country right now with in hard hit baseballs. You had multiple in Sunday alone that were hit over 106 miles an hour. Like, and here's the other thing about that too, guys. It's not easy to do that in general. It's easier to do it with metal bats, but it's also really difficult to do anything of that caliber when it's this cold outside. And from a standpoint of braving the elements and having to go through all that, yet another reason why this thing is so impressive and what they've been able to start this early on. I love the fact that you're sitting here. You got a game against Gardner-Webb tomorrow night. We're recording this on Monday, so that's Tuesday night. Now, as of today, you're sitting at 8-0. Wins over Winthrop, who's, by the way, Winthrop's not a bad school. Like, it's not a bad baseball program. You go 5-0 last week. You win both your midweek games, sweeping Milwaukee. And I tell you what, the thing I love most about this is you win Saturday, or I'm sorry, Friday 5-2. You win Saturday 6-3. Sunday, like, you always want to go for a sweep, like, right? Like, Sunday's always an important day because you either are avoiding a sweep, trying to win a series, or going for a sweep. Going for a sweep and being able to win by 10 runs, I love that. I love that. They've started 8-0 for the second time in the last 3 seasons. The pitching staff has 99 strikeouts in 69 innings, holding opponents to a 148 batting average. How about the fact that they're 17 of 19 stolen bases? You have the SEC save leader with Brennan Sweeney. Ethan Petrie is hitting 444 with 9 RBIs. It's just everywhere you look at it, it's been very, very positive. Now, I will tell you this, and you guys know it better than me probably. Clemson this weekend. I love that there's only one midweek game, so you can get focused on that because that's going to be a big, big series. They're doing it the way they always do it, which is one game is in Friday night in Clemson, Saturday afternoon, I believe. That's a tough transition. Then they're going to Greenville on Saturday at 1:30, and then at home at 5 p.m. on Sunday. Now, I don't love having to play at Clemson at 7 p.m., then getting right back up and playing a 1:30 start the next day. That's a quick turnaround by all means. Clemson's a really good team. It's a really good team. Eric Bakich, I love Eric Bakich to death. He recruited me when I was in high school. That's how old both of us are, I guess, now at this point. He recruited me when he's an assistant at Clemson back in the day. He's a great dude. Great dude. I know we hate Clemson. We will never hate Eric Bakich. I will tell you that. Me personally. Maybe an unpopular opinion. But really good team. Really good opportunity. And we say this all the time. Like, it's a really good team you're going to face. That means you have a really good opportunity to, like, continue the bats going, keep the pitching going, and go into their home field on Friday night, get a win to start the weekend, and then by Sunday, hopefully you are doing what we talked about. And it's one of the last 2 things, getting a series win or getting a series sweep. Definitely avoiding getting swept by them. I think it's a really good opportunity for this team. I really like what they've done so far. You can tell the team, this is not a shot at the former coach or anything like that, like directly at least, but this is a different team. You can just tell that Mark Kingston, like, especially towards the end of his tenure, this just feels like every like when you watch, like, just the what's the word I'm looking for here? Aura is not right, but the kids say it all the time now. It's when you're watching the body language, just like how the team carries themselves, all that kind of stuff, you can just tell this team is run differently and feels differently with Paul Maneri as the head coach. So, all right. And also, let's not forget either, South Carolina softball, tremendous start. Tremendous start. Love where they're headed. Like I said, 8 or 9 games in a row where you've run ruled people. I believe they're ranked up with 14 in the country right now. Really, really good stuff out of them as well. Love all that. So we are going to take a quick break. We'll be right back. Before we go to break, I want to tell you about our friends at FanDuel and the deal they have going right now that you don't want to miss out on. Now, when the game tips off, the NBA action is just getting started, and there's no better place to get in on that than FanDuel. It's America's #1 sportsbook, and it's America's #1 sportsbook for a good reason, guys. With FanDuel, you can place live bets throughout the game, so even if you miss the opening tip-off or want to get in on a fourth quarter comeback, you can stay in on the action. And if you're looking for a bigger payout, and you can even combine your live bets into the same game parlay. I love using FanDuel's live betting feature because it helps me keep up with every single moment, whether I see a team that's going to start making a comeback that I think is going to blow someone out in the second half. Either way, they have everything right at your fingertips that you could possibly want. And right now, new FanDuel customers can get $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet hits. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. That's FanDuel.com for your shot at $150 in bonus bets. Make every moment more with FanDuel, the official sportsbook betting partner of the NBA. All right, we'll be right back with more Locked On Gamecocks. All right, let's close out today's show with a quick little update on some fun stuff. Now, the Combine is this week, which is huge. I wrote an article today for my other job talking about at LouisianaSports.net about SEC breakout players of the Combine. Top of the list, Nikki Minwari. Right under him, I only had 4 players in the SEC, 2 of them from South Carolina. Nikki Minwari is one. Demetrius Knight Jr. is the other. I think both of those guys are going to have a great. All right, welcome back. We're going to talk real quick about some recruiting updates. On 3, I feel like they're supposed to do this like once a year, and they do it every week. But updated their 2026 on 3 top 300, and obviously it updated the rankings for the teams. Now the teams, South Carolina is right where you expect them to be. They live at 18 to 22. They are literally like a someone in college, like age wise. It's just like 18 to 22 nonstop. They are 19th right now. I think they're one spot behind Illinois, ironically enough. And it's from the most recent things, not the most recent updates. Now, here's the thing. They only have 5 commits. The thing that I love most about this is you have 5 commits, 4 of them are 4 stars. And that is something we haven't necessarily seen early on in South Carolina's recruiting classes. We've seen them in times past where they've had, like last year's class was great. We talked about the blue chip ratio the other day of recruits. This is a really strong start. You're talking about your blue chip ratio here of the recruits you're signing is 80%, which is really good. Now it's a long way to go. You only have 5 players, like I said. I want to highlight one player specifically that I'm very excited about, and it's Julian Walker. Julian Walker, a kid from Dutch Fork, so right down the road. His dad is an assistant on the staff, 6'6", 230. This is a player to keep an eye on for a number of reasons, not just because his dad's on staff, but also not a ton of interest yet. Coastal Carolina's offered, NC State's offered, Charlotte, of course, East Carolina, Syracuse, all of them have offered, and South Carolina. 6'6", 230, edge. Okay? Here's why I'm most excited about him. Because you look at his numbers, okay? And plays at a great school, right? Dutch Fork is a great school, especially in terms of football prospects. They feel like they put it out. The other thing is this. I told you who already offered him. We've seen this trend that South Carolina is always ahead of the curve. He's not a rated prospect on 247, ESPN, or Rivals. He's not rated at all. At all. You would think, being the son of a college football coach and a staffer, like an assistant at South Carolina, he would probably get some. He'd be seen a little bit more. Also playing at a high-profile school like Dutch Fork. I know they won a state title a couple years ago. Maybe I don't keep up with South Carolina high school sports as much, but I feel like they've been very competitive. Correct me if I'm wrong, or don't, and just let me have it. I don't know. But here's the thing. He is now rated as the 134th player in the country at On3. You already have an in with him. So that's a good news. But again, it kind of just serves to the point. It speaks to the point of what I've been saying for a while now, which is like, at some point, the rest of the country and the staffs at like On3 and Rivals and 247, they have to catch up on this, which is like, in the past, we've seen the Bama bump type thing, or Georgia or whatever, where it's like, well, that if they think this 3-star is good enough to recruit, like he should get a bump. Like, clearly we missed something. I mean, South Carolina is way ahead of the curve on this again. Way ahead of the curve on this again. And now you're looking at a kid 6'6", 230 off the edge, which is a position of need always. And I love the upside there. So that is all for today's show. We'll be back tomorrow. Hope all of you have a fantastic rest of your Monday. We will see y'all then.